Hey everybody, good afternoon. Mr. Wagner here. Today we are going to work on Flappy 12. In this one, we are actually going to try to get the bird to flap a little bit. That should be fun. Okay, so what I have here is Flappy 12. Remember the last one, we had it going angled up and down depending on what the gravity was. And this one, we are going to get it flapping. Now, before we begin, I want to take a look at our Flappy images. I'm going to go into Project, okay, and I'm going to look in our sprites, and I want you to notice we have a yellow bird down flap. See, the bird's arm is down, wing is down, and then we have mid flap, and then we have up flap. So, you know, in many ways, in order to animate this, we go up, mid, down, mid, up, mid, down, mid, up, mid, down, mid, up. Okay, so you know, in some ways, all we are really doing in this is just changing that base image within our bird class all the time, depending on if we are in up flap, mid flap, or down flap. Maybe a little easier said than done, but I think we can handle it at this point. Okay, I'm going to close these out, and let's take a look at Flappy 12. Now, a couple things we're going to need to do. We're going to obviously need to get those images into the bird class. So let's start with that. I think that's a good place to start. And let's start with where we instantiate our bird. Okay, let's scroll down. I believe that is, let's see here. Right here. Fabby equals bird, and then here's the file name, and then that's where we're putting it. Okay, so what we're going to do here is we're going to create a list of our bird images, because we need to be able to pass yellow bird up, flap, mid flap, down flap. So I'm just going to call this Fabby images equals, and remember we just use a, what do you call that, a list. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to pass a list of those three file names to our bird object. I'm going to go ahead and grab all of this. This happens to be the mid flap. So Command C, I'm going to pop that in there, right like that. Remember, things in lists are just basically comma delimited. Well, let's put a, okay, we'll do a Command V, comma, backslash, Command V, okay. So basically we have up, flap, mid flap, and down flap. Is that correct? Let's just check. Up, mid, and down. That's right. Okay. So we're going to be passing Fabby images, which is a list, into bird instead of just a single file. So we got to deal with that. So let's put Fabby images there. Now, of course, at this point, it's not going to work because we're not just passing one thing. We're passing three different pictures. So let's go up to bird and take a look. Okay. So here's bird. Our constructor, our underscore underscore init underscore underscore, is passing an image file. Let's say that's an image file list, and maybe what we'll do here, we need to create a list of the actual images. Now that's one thing that's really neat about Python. You can put anything in a list. You can put objects in a list, you can put graphics in a list, you can put sounds in a list, you could put the file names to sounds in a list. Lists are very generic. You can use them for whatever. So we're just gonna, let's create a thing called images. Let's say, well, we need self.images because it's actually part of the class. And we're just going to say that equals this, right? And let's create self.images index. Okay. Now the images index is going to be the current state of the flap at any moment in time in the game. Let's just go ahead and say 1 because that's sort of mid-flap, right? State of flap during game. Okay. So here we're going to say self.images.append. Remember, we add something to the end of our list. And what we're going to append is pygame.image.load. Okay, we're loading that. And what we are loading is our image file list sub-0. Okay, that's the first thing on that image file list that gets passed to us. Okay, and then what we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and convert that into alpha before we add it. Okay, so I can put that dot convert alpha, and that sort of is exactly the same thing here as this line 82, except I can do it all on one line. Okay, so we're appending the image of whatever is loaded from image file list sub-0, and then we're converting the alpha to our bird. And the reason we have to convert the alpha instead of just dot convert is because the bird is actually transparent. Okay, now that 0 I think is the upper. Okay, so that's the up flap. And now we're going to need to do that 2 more times. Okay, so we're going to copy it and copy it. But this time we're going to add 1, and 1 is our mid flap, right? And then 2 is our down flap. But I want you to think about this, because what we're going to do in this game is we are going to go up, mid, down. But then if we went right back up to up, mid, down, we would have this weird glitchy movement in the wings. Okay, so what we really need is up, mid, down, mid. And then it repeats to up, okay, because the bird is going up and down. Okay, so what we need to do is we need to add another one of these mids here, okay. A little bit confusing, but kind of, I think you guys can handle it, okay. And then our image is going to be self.image, images sub self.image copy, or image, I'm sorry, image, like that. All right? Okay. Okay, now you notice how I said self.image copy. In reality, this time, we already have our 1, 2, 3, 4 images because they are part of our images list. So we really don't need to deal with this image copy like we did when we had the bird flapping. So let's go ahead and get rid of this image copy, and let's just leave it there. Oh, I have a bug in here. Instead of self.image equals self.images self-image, it's really dot self imgs index. Okay, we need the index of the image, not that. Okay? All right. Okay, so let's go take a look at our update and see what we can do. All right, so we are going to come into update, and we are going to need to update that image index. Okay, so every time we update, we are going to say something to the effect of self.imgs index plus equals 1. Okay, so every time we increment the index by 1, and every time we do something like that, we also need to make sure that we don't go out of the range of our list. So we're going to say if self.images index is greater than the length, remember the length is the length of the list, self.images. Okay, then we're just going to reset self.images index back to 0. Okay, see how that works? So we're adding 1, and then if it's longer, we bump it back to 0. Okay, now if we're in our waiting state, then instead of our self.image equals self.image copy, what we can do is we can say self.image equals self.images and then sub self.image index, okay? Because remember, image index is where we are flapping at that moment, okay? And to that end, that little bit of code is the same place as every place that we needed image copy. Okay, so let me go ahead and quickly change all of these. And I do believe that our bird should be flapping. Okay? Because basically all we're doing is we are copying out the image index every time. We have an error. Oh, I see where my error is. Basically, I have if self-image index is greater than the length. That needs to be equal, like that. And I want you to know, look at that bird. That bird looks like a hummingbird. He is like really flapping. Let's see if we can play. Yeah, he's really flapping like a hummingbird. Okay, so what we're going to have to do here, this is going to be a little bit tricky. Now, one thing we could do is we could slow down our frames per speed, or frames per second. But if we did that, then that's really not going to work, because what happens there is then the pipes slow down and everything. So what we really need to do is only flap, say, every 5th or every 6th or every 10th frame, okay? So what we need is like a frame counter in here to keep up with what frame we're on, and only flap at that point, okay? Let's see what we can do here. All right, let's go back up into our bird, and let's add a frame. We'll do self.frame counter equals 0. Okay, we just have a variable. Oh, you know what? I see here on line 85, we have this convert alpha. We can get rid of that line. So let's get rid of that. Okay. So our frame counter, let me put a little bit of comment here. Used to slow down the bird flapping. Okay. So let me show you how to use one of these counters. Okay, basically what we're going to do is we're going to count up to something, and then when it hits that number, then we'll do it. You know, then we'll flap, and then what we can do is we'll reset the counter, and then it'll continue. Okay, so let's scroll down to update, and we'll put our counter like right here at the top. We're going to say something to the effect of if self.frame counter equals, let's say 10, then we want to do this stuff. So we'll scoot that over, right? So if it equals to 10, we're going to do all that stuff. We're going to reset our frame counter back to 0. So self.frame counter equal to 0. And then after that, we are going to self.frame counter plus equals 1. Okay, so every time update is called, we are going to add 1 to the frame counter. Okay, you know what? I'm going to move this frame counter up here instead. Okay, so what we're going to do is every time we call that update, which is every frame, we are going to update the frame counter by 1. If the frame counter equals 10, then we're going to move our position of our flap 1 more. Then we check to see if we need to move that index back to 0. And then we're going to change our frame counter back to 0. Okay, so this should slow down our bird's flapping quite a bit. Okay, so yeah, see the bird is flapping nicely? See how that's working? And if you wanted that bird to flap faster, then the value 10 here would be what you would change. So you would change that to, say, 5. Then the bird would be flapping a lot faster, see? And if you made it really big, like 50, then he'd only like flap a couple times a second, see? See how that works? It's like a counter within a counter is what's going on there. Let's split the difference between the 5 and the 10. We'll make it 7. Yeah, that looks pretty good. Whee! Now we got a Flappy Bird game going, don't we? Boom! We can restart. Here we go again. I think this would make just about any kiddo happy. All right, so we've made some pretty good progress. We got it flapping. The next video we're going to be doing is a really exciting one because it's actually the very end of this course. And that video, we are going to be incorporating sound into our game, and that should be a lot of fun. All right, till then, take care. Have a good day.